All right. Well, one last plug for the donations before we get started. Please go to virtual.sugcon.events/donate. Any amount helps.
And are we live?
We're live.
Hi guys, I'm John King and I'm co-presenting today with David Goosem. So we're from Speedwell. So Speedwell has been a Sitecore partner for over 10 years now. And the common question that we often get is, how do I make my website, especially a Sitecore solution, accessible? What's out of the box? And how can I get my team up to speed on all the compliance and rules and everything else that comes with accessibility? Accessibility hasn't been a topic that's new. It's the W3C guidelines have been out since 2008 now, and there's been quite a number of revisions. So currently we're at the WCAG 2.1, and today David and I will go through on how to optimize your Sitecore solution for accessibility. So before I kick off, I just wanted to plug that we're donating money to the COVID-19 Solidarity Response Fund. This is powered by the United Nations Foundation and goes directly towards helping prevent, detect, and respond to the COVID-19 pandemic. So, why is website accessibility so important? On a global scale, because this is a global event, it's 1.5 billion people globally have a disability. If you think of that, how many people are in your country right now that currently can't access your website? According to the Australian stats, I'll just run through some below here. We've got 575,000 people who have a vision impairment, so blind or low vision. 50.7% of Australians aged 65 and over live with a disability, and 15% of Australia's population is over 65. And that's expected to rise to 22% by 2057. That's because we've got an aging population. So of that, the stats say that less than 10% of websites are accessible. And today we'll hopefully help you get a better understanding of accessibility and what you can actually do from a practical example for your Sitecore solution. Below there, you just got a quick definition of what is disability. So from that perspective, it's really good to understand when you're planning out a website or a new app to consider who you're actually building this for. Because at the end of the day, your end user has to have the best access and equal access to the content that you're hoping them to actually consume. So that includes people that have a condition associated to mental, sensory, mobility functions, and can be caused through an accident, trauma, genetics, or disease. As disability may be temporary or permanent, total, partial, lifelong, acquired, visible, or non-visible. Prime example, someone is involved in a car accident, they break their arm or leg, and then they fall under this category. So how are you going to build a solution that essentially assists those people to navigate through your website, consume the content, and take the business action that you're after? So, one of the alarming statistics that I've read is that from 2009 to 2014, mobile screen readers, the usage of it actually increased by 70%. This stats from Sitecore. We're a Sitecore partner, and they have a great testing tool which enables us to do SEO audits, accessibility, which is why we're talking about this today, as well as site performance stuff. So, jumping into it, we're currently in the stage whereby compliance for accessibility is governed by the Web Content Accessibility Guidelines. And they generally fall under these 4 categories: perceivable, offerable, understandable, and robust. So, what is accessibility? It involves a wide range of disabilities, including visual, auditory, physical, speech, cognitive, language, learning, and neurological disabilities. And as I said before, there's 4 categories which has criteria which you need to ensure that your website is complying to. So that's those perceivable. So that's what a lot of people understand is those text alternatives. So for your images, including alt text, for videos, including your captions, and then going that one step further, which is AA compliance, which is transcripts. And then if you want to go that one step further, it's also including sign language so people can interpret the content based on that person signing. As you can see, there's a whole bunch of other criteria, but I'm not going to go deeply into this today. I'm just going to skim over to give you a bit of a better idea. The source down the bottom is really good. So you visit the W3C website, and it's got a quick reference guide of all the criteria and definitions to help you. Like I said, there's 3 levels of compliance: A, AA, and AAA. A is a good baseline, I guess, but most of our clients, when we do websites, ask to be AA compliant. This is because a lot of our clients are from government institutions and educational institutions whereby by law they actually have to be compliant. AAA, like I said before, is going that higher level of compliance and conforming to A, AA, and AAA success criteria, but also ensuring that your website complies to the alternative version as associated to the definitions. Again, another great resource is the conformance guidelines on the W3C. Another stat, so since 2000, 23% of all website accessibility related litigation and settlements happened in the past 3 years. So what this means is that we need to draw our focus and attention to this topic and ensure that our websites and apps and everything that we're building as devs, content editors, and designers complies, because people are getting litigious around this topic. And in some slides that I'll say further on, the EU is actually bringing out in September some laws that will actually govern this. So, quick tips for accessibility. This is straight from the W3C website. So basically, provide sufficient contrast between foreground and background. Don't use colors alone to convey information. Ensure that interactive elements are easy to identify. Provide clear and consistent navigation options. Ensure that form elements include clearly associated labels. Provide easily identifiable feedback. Use heading and space to group related content. Create designs for different viewports. That means that if you're browsing a piece of content from a mobile, that it's responsive. It's actually working for the intended use of that device. So regardless of whether you're on a desktop, tablet, or the number of iOS and Android devices, it suits that actual viewport size. On to the next point is to include images and media alternatives in your design. So like I said before, making sure that captions is always turned on. For a fun fact, a lot of people on Facebook and social media actually watch media with no sound on because they're in an environment that is either public or shared, and quite often they enjoy the captions to be turned on to understand or discover what the intent of the media is. So it not only applies for people with a disability or an impairment, but also people with a non-disability or non-impairment, which might see the use of this criteria as a benefit as well. So last point was provide controls for content. That starts automatically. So this generally is for people with a learning disability or auditory or issues with functioning with a website. So it gives control back to the user so they have an equal experience to navigate through, say, slider containers or additional elements on your website that might be automatically done through code. So like I said before, if you guys are in the EU, now is the time to focus on what you're going to do to comply. From September 2020, the EU will require all public websites to follow standardized accessibility requirements. Check the regulations based on where you're located, but I'm sure they're going to be associated to the WCAG guidelines. So check that out, guys. What I see is this is probably going to be very similar to GDPR. So where we had to all be compliant in regards to the cookie policy. I see this going to be used and applied across the world as accessibility standards should be the norm. It just makes business sense at the end of the day. It's understanding that if I build a website or an app or whatever the application is that it's actually fulfilling the intent of the users that are actually consuming and actually interacting with that website or app that you're developing. So writing for accessibility, this is for the content producers out there that are listening. So provide informative, unique page titles, use headings to convey meaning and structure. This is quite important for people that are on screen readers. So understanding the context of images to text to divs to buttons to everything else. So making sure that you're using the right structures and semantics in play to ensure that what you're trying to convey to your audience actually is meaningful. So next points, write meaningful text alternatives for images. This means that rather than leave it blank, and quite often if you leave it blank, the actual reader will tell the user what the file name is, which can be quite shitty really when you think about it. Because I don't know what your image like naming convention is, but I don't think it really would convey the right message of what the image is. So when I do alternative text, I quite often think, what do I need to convey right now? And how do I describe that image? It's not an image of just the bear. It's a bear with a background and giving context of where that bear is in the location that it's in. So it just gives that additional value to the user. Like I said before, create transcripts and captions for media. It benefits both people with a disability, plus also people with a non-disability due to different situations that we're all in at the moment. Provide clear instructions and keep content clear and concise. What I love is the fact that this advice also falls into a lot of the SEO recommendations that I tell my clients. It just seems right at the end of the day. So developing for accessibility. Associate a label with every form control. Include alternative text for images. Identify page language and language changes. This is quite important for Sitecore, that you might have a multilingual website. So a website that, based on the geolocation, actually detects and changes the language into the common language of that country. Use markup to convey meaning and structure. Help users avoid and correct mistakes. Reflect the reading order in the code order. Write code that adapts to the user's technology. Provide meaning for non-standard interactive elements. ensure that all interactive elements are keyboard accessible, because at the end of the day, there is an actual percentage of people that don't use a keyboard to access your website. Regardless of the device, there are extensions that people use to access websites. So it's understanding the intent early and designing for that. Because at the end of the day, when it comes down to it, it costs a lot more to do testing and developing a website to be accessible compared to if you have that mindset from the start. So the last recommendation from W3C is avoid capture where possible. That's because there's a whole bunch of things that you have to custom edit to include in your code. However, there is alternatives of what you can do to include capture in a safe way for the users. So, whole bunch of information that I've told you, right? And you're thinking, oh, I'm a bit overwhelmed. And actually, when a lot of people approach accessibility, they do get overwhelmed because there's a lot of criteria, there's a lot of definitions that you have to digest. And when it comes down to it, like Site and Proofs have referenced here, you need to break down your accessibility issues into priorities and manageable tasks. And then you can essentially report back in a staged approach of what you've achieved, what compliance that you're actually moving in the direction of, and also it can be something that can be done over multiple people, split up to make sure that you're addressing the right criteria, you're interpreting the definition, because with the W3C WCAG guidelines, a lot of them actually, you do need to have a little bit of a humanized approach to it of what do they actually mean by this. For the time-based rules, we learned that if it's a ticketing website, the website can't time out in a certain time frame. You have to give a decent time frame for someone with that learning disability or physical disability to navigate your website and complete the ticketing system. So it's a bit of things there that I think you definitely need to consider when constructing a new website or enhancing or building new components. And that's what Dave's going to be talking about in the next slides. So for testing for accessibility, this is just the last point. Our recommendation for reporting, plus also getting through all the definitions that are out there for the WCAG 2.1, is to use a testing tool like Site and Prove. There's a whole bunch of testing tools out there that help you automate and identify errors in your code. So as you can see there on the right-hand side there, Site and Prove actually spits out a report for you, which labels what the issue is, the associated definition, and what level of conformance that you'll be addressing if you solve that issue. You can also sort it by priority and impact, which is great if you've got a larger team of developers, or it's even great if you want to drill that down to a content author. So from a content author perspective, they can jump in and do all the alt text and all the additional stuff that they need to do as a content editor. Or you can also filter by a dev or more technical. At Speedwell, we also use JAWS screen reader. So the JAWS software is a great product, which is great for us because we can test on multiple devices. You can do it on desktops, you can do it on tablets, and you can test on all your phones and stuff. But yeah, before I switch over to Dave, I just want to say, don't get too overwhelmed. Chunk it into items and tasks that you can manage and communicate that effectively to your clients and your team, right? At the end of the day, compliance is key. Building the right pages and utilizing Sitecore for that is easy to do, but there's a whole bunch of processes and things that I would recommend for someone who's been using Sitecore for over 7 years now is to talk to your developers and understand how you can extend your current product to assist your content producers and people who are literally using the Sitecore platform every day. So on to Dave.
Hello, can you hear me? Success. I just want to quickly say apologies in advance if you can hear vehicles moving past my window. I think it must be like lunch hour or something. It's a bit after 1 over here, and trucks are all doing roadwork somewhere nearby. So yeah, thanks, John. So my name's David, despite what the name tag says on the video. I am the Sitecore lead at Speedwell, and I thought I'd take the focus more into the Sitecore world, given that we're looking at stuff for a Sitecore user group. So I just wanted to sort of touch on the fact that Sitecore is a content management system. As the name implies, people are managing content. So yeah, I guess you could go to all kinds of elaborate lengths to make, as a developer, your website accessible, only to be thwarted at the content management time when, you know, Joe Blogs comes in and makes some changes and doesn't adhere to those rules or follow those guidelines. So we're going to have a bit of a look at some stuff that you can do within Sitecore to try and, I guess, not force, but strongly, strongly, I guess, force people to sort of consider it at least. So yeah, let's get into it. I have to, maybe I'll wave at John when it's time to change slides. So, I mean, I just want to basically highlight here that nothing I'm about to describe is particularly groundbreaking. So, you know, we're not doing anything that's going to blow anyone's minds here. I guess what I'm doing is grabbing a bundle of useful things you can do within Sitecore to ensure that you can be compliant and to assist with making that possible. There's lots of good functions that you can do within Sitecore, and I don't think we need to do anything explicitly custom. You know, there's lots you can do with the out-of-the-box tooling, for example, that will get you well on your way. And none of this stuff is really difficult. Like, there's lots to it. If you want to go for AAA standard, like, there's more to consider. But mostly it's just, if you understand what you're doing up front, you can achieve a lot without really changing your sort of way of working too much. So the number one item I've got up here is using semantic markup. So, you know, HTML5 gets your header tags, your footer tags, your navigation tags, and identify stuff. Don't throw divs everywhere, because, you know, if you're using a reader, your people using that don't really care about what's in your header and your navigation on every page every time. So having the main tag there allows people to jump straight to the body of your page and actually consume the content they care about. And I think you can pretty much do that, you know, and you can really assist with this just by setting up your base layouts in a nice, neat way. So make sure you've got your placeholders for header and footer and main sitting inside those tags, so they're always there. Similarly with navigation and that sort of thing. And I've got down there, limit the use of rich text editors, rich text fields, sorry, for your components. As I alluded to before, using a rich text field, you know, it's very powerful, and I don't think we should not use them, but if you've got them everywhere, you're sort of opening the gates for content authors to throw, you know, whatever they like into a page, and maybe it doesn't really follow those guidelines we've been talking about. So one of the first things that I thought we could look at would be using field level validation in Sitecore. So again, I've mentioned that we're not doing anything groundbreaking, so I just want to sort of give you guys a bit of a tool bag of things that you can use almost out of the box for a lot of this to make sure that your site is accessible. So Sitecore field level validation, like you see this with a lot of the out of the box functionality in Sitecore. So like your images. If John goes to the next slide, I think we've got an example there. So if you look at the out of the box image template, you have a validation rule applied on a field. So if you're building a template, you can basically assign a validation rule to a field. And when it's running after you're filling in your content, it will look something like this. So you can see on the left there's a little red bar saying, hey, do something with this. And on the right, there's some sort of contextual little icons up there to say the same. I will say that, in the spirit of trying to enforce accessibility, there's different types of validation levels. And the one that ships in this instance with the image template is, not one that will force someone to put a value in there. So if they choose to ignore that, they can. And perhaps, if you're building your own image template or templates with image fields on it, you might consider, trying to actually put rules in place that will force them to insert the alt text when they hit save. Just so that they, that's a really easy, simple, low-hanging fruit sort of accessibility item. Put an alt text in. It's really easy. There's a field there for it. Go nuts. So maybe we go to the next one. This is just sort of showing people how. Oh wait, one more back. Sorry, John. If you're in Sitecore and you've got a template, this is sort of how you would apply. So there's the validation rules down in the tree there. You can find one that already exists. There's lots of them, but I think there's an image of that further down. That might be too small. I don't know if anyone can see that. But yeah, that's down in the system area. I would say if you're looking at, say, like the default image template, a big thing to be mindful of is, if you're touching the out-of-the-box Sitecore templates, make sure that you are confident in doing so. If you're ever in doubt, maybe just create your own template and start using those instead, so that you can then extend that and do what you want with it. On to the next one. Man, you're jumping too. I'm confused. So just one. Perfect. If you want to add your own rule, so this is where you can start to really use the power of these validation rules to do more than what you get out of the box. It's pretty straightforward. I think if you're doing any Sitecore development, you should be pretty familiar with this process, whereby there's a extension that you want to use. So you go and create your item in the validation rules area, and you point it to your own implementation in your own file in your own DLL, and you inherit from the appropriate interface to make that work, and just basically go nuts. So an example might be if you want to validate a rich text field, since we're talking about that, and you want to pass that markup that someone's put in there that the rich text editors spat out, you could then put a warning on there and say, hey, you need to go and add something to the markup to ensure that you are compliant for accessibility.
A great example of that would be a link label. So quite often I see in my client websites is that they use the rich text editor and don't often label their hyperlinks. So it's making sure that we put a rule in place to have that as an item.
Yeah, and if you're really pedantic and you want to sort of push the envelope a bit, not push the envelope, it's not a good way to describe it, but give people a knock around their head if they're not doing what they should, that's where you could say make it a different level of error, and that's what we're looking at here. So I've done anything groundbreaking again. I've cracked open the one of the Sitecore DLLs, it's the main one, and we're looking here at the validator result enumerator, which has descriptions in here which tell you when you implement a new validation rule and you decide on what type of error you want it to flag as. You know, for example, the one down there that says fatal error, you can't even save the item unless you resolve that issue. And that's kind of what I'm talking about if you want to really strongly encourage, I'll say, that people do things that you want. It is a bit intrusive, so if you're getting in the way of content authors putting content on a page and that's their primary focus, maybe that's too far. But at least you could put like the warning errors on there so that they can see that there's something up, and it's just a nice little addition. Man, we're already here. I think we're missing one, aren't we? The other thing I just want to touch on, since we're here, it's all right, John. I'll jump in. So the other things that you can do in the Sitecore world, I guess, is to incorporate, a workflow. So if you don't want to go to those lengths, perhaps your Sitecore workflow contains steps for reviewing, which goes to somebody that's has a bit of an understanding of accessibility and can do a quick review of your content and fail it and send it back to people to improve it or just make the improvements themselves so that it is accessible. Some of the other things that if you're building websites for, say, SXA, and you've got a bunch of out-of-the-box features that all have their own markup already in place, and you want to extend those or make them more accessible, which I would encourage people to consider at least. You've got a couple of options there. You could grab the views that are getting rendered out and pull them into your solution and make a couple of adjustments. I would say that that's a bit of a risk for the upgrade path. When you inevitably upgrade and you upgrade SXA, maybe you've got incorrect versions of those views in place. So perhaps you want to then make your own variation of a rendering and do it in that way. Or similarly, if you're using Sitecore forms and you want to go and insert some extra form level accessibility elements, or improve that in some way, you could do the same thing. You can pull in those form views and those fields that they have in there. I guess it's just being mindful of when you are upgrading or doing that sort of thing that you know that you've got to do a merge on those later, which I think is fine if you know that you're doing it and it's for good reasons. It's just that extra overhead. Yeah, I think that's pretty much so. As I said, we're not doing anything particularly groundbreaking, but we are able to use the tools that Sitecore offers us to pretty easily enhance your site and make sure that when you're building them in the first place that they are as accessible as possible.
So just on that, if you are able to utilize Siteimprove, Siteimprove does have an extension into Sitecore whereby a modal will actually pop up on the right-hand side to help the content editor navigate what error that he or she or the person is trying to validate. And it also gives you a great description as well, which is really handy and helpful for those people wanting to be compliant from the accessibility perspective. I'd like to say thank you very much to all the organisers of this great event. Both Dave and I are active community members. So Dave, you can contact Dave through the Sitecore chat Slack, plus also Twitter, as well as the Stack Exchange, and that's his details there. And you can also contact me via Slack as well as via Twitter, via Brisbane Giant 87 or our Speedwell corporate account. Thank you very much. Just a quick note, we've got some resources on our Speedwell website if you want to look into some articles around this. Also, from our presentation today, a lot of the quick tips is from the W3C website using that link. David's article on the accessibility guidelines for Sitecore is on his website, and the guys at Siteprove has put together a accessibility checklist. So if you follow that link, you'll be able to download a checklist which can help you start your accessibility journey. And thank you.
Thank you, John.
Thank you very much, John. That was great. I think there's a couple of questions. Someone asked, do you use third-party accessibility software to test? I think you probably covered that, yeah?
Yes, that's right. So we use Siteimprove, plus we also use JAWS, so as a screen reader perspective. Yep.
Yeah, you can often hear people in our office with various screen readers just rattling off various things. It's quite a chaotic time when you're actually testing that. So maybe find a room to do that in, so you don't annoy your colleagues.
Any other questions, guys?
Do you guys have any small demo for the Siteimprove?
Unfortunately, you'd have to book a session for Siteimprove, but yeah, unfortunately, I can't bring that up right now.
Okay, no issues.
No worries. If people are interested in seeing a Siteimprove demo, feel free to get in contact with me, and I can organise that. The beauty of it is the fact that you do have a reporting dashboard of your progress for accessibility. Plus, also you can chunk it up into the different level of the people who might be assisting to get your website compliant. So you can literally filter by content editor or non-technical or technical, which is great. Is there any other questions from the community?
I guess all the questions are around the audit tools only, like you have covered Siteimprove and Crown Jewels.
No worries.
There is one question. Do you use any service that includes a real physically challenged person testing the site? I don't know if there's such a service.
For actual, some of our clients actually service disabled people, and a lot of the websites that we've done have actually had user testing with people with disabilities and accessibility issues. So yes, we have done that, but it's case by case based on what the client is wanting, their requirements, budget and needs, and we can coordinate that accordingly.
Okay, thank you very much, John, and thanks, Dave. That was good. Next up, we've got Andy Parry, who's going to be talking about automate all the things. So that's going to be in a little while. We're just going to get some of the organisers back on, and thank you guys again.
Thank you.
No worries. Thank you very much.
And we're joined this afternoon by Akshay Sura and Jason Wilkerson, who are still up despite the late hour. Hello, guys.
What is happening?
Are you guys going to share your screen?
Yeah,
Right,
I'm sharing it.
Hold on, Gopi.
Come on, Gopi.
It's about time for my midnight snack.
The lanyard man's back.
How's it going, guys?
Oh no.
Jeez. We can't hear
Still
you.
awake. Going to be my last session coming up. I'm going to have to crash.
We'll have to leave it in the hands of Gopi and Bruce. God help us all. You come back
Optimistic,
tomorrow
I tell ya.
morning and the conference is done.
Yeah. And if you've just joined us, viewers, don't forget the COVID-19 Solidarity Response Fund. You can go there and donate now. The URL shown down the bottom there. For all those amazing people out there working on the front lines for us, we can't really appreciate them enough. So go and give.
What's
Like
the
what?
URL, Bruce? Can you speak
Well,
with your wonderful voice?
oh mate, got a bit of Aussie on you. Oh yeah, the HTTPS little colon thingy, 2 slashes, virtual.sugon.events, and then another slashy thing, and the word donate.
Woohoo! And how much did we get so far, Brucey?
I don't know. I'm not on the page. I think we're up. The last time I checked, we were about £1,500.
Euros. Yes.
Euros.
Yeah,
Euros.
Almost the same thing.
Almost 1,600 euro.
That's
Yeah,
right.
sorry. Pounds. I was talking about my weight there.
Yeah, please everybody
I'm not even gonna
go
touch
and
that one.
donate.
It's been a long lockdown, I tell you.
Sorry, Ben, you were saying something.
I was just saying, trying to get people to donate. I mean, we've got a large community here. We just need people to step up, and just any amount helps. We just each give a few euros. We'll meet our goal. So please give what you can.
We have a goal.
We do. 10,000
All right.
euros is the goal.
10,000 euros. Excellent goal. I think we should be able to do that.
And Ben calculated that the number of registrations we had, we just need
$5
5
€5 or so
€5 per person. It's
€5. That,
from where we were at the start of when the broadcast actually started. Yeah.
And I heard also that
number of people.
I heard also that if we actually reach our 10,000 euro goal, that Gopi's going to shave off his mustache.
Oh, really?
and Corey too, yeah. Corey promised.
Only issue is then until I grow my mustache, I can't call my dad video calls.
If we get to 10,000, I'll grow one.
If we get 20,000, Jason will shave off his beard.
Yes.
No.
Yes.
It'll take a lot more
Yes. The beard.
Jason wouldn't shave that beard if you gave him 20,000.
It'd have to be 7 figures, and 80% of that would have to go to my pocket first.
Does it have to be in a
Whatever
particular
number makes it
currency? Because we could
outrageous
definitely do
enough.
the 7 figures, just not in euros or dollars.
Okay, so we're just chatting it up because the previous presenters finished a little bit early. The next presenter is due in 20 minutes. So while we wait for Andy,
But hey, you guys can ask us some questions if you guys have
I guess.
any questions.
Yeah, look, just anything really. The answer is always 42.
The answer is always, did you raise a support ticket for that?
The answer is there's an image for that.
There's an app for it. Nice. No question. No one wants to ask a question.
Oh, Dennis wants to know about the youth reboot. Sorry, that came out really wrong. The youth reboot. Akshay, if you could tell us a bit about that.
Yeah, so it's actually kind of interesting. What a few of us are helping do things. So there's an island called Dominica, which I didn't know of. For me, I thought it was Dominican Republic myself, but I have been to several of the Caribbean islands, Grenada and such. But I didn't know that in the same chain there's an island called Dominica. That's where Dennis is from. So right now we're working with the government of Dominica to come up with a program where we train young adults from Dominica in technology. So, ASP.NET, MVC, C#, and hopefully some Sitecore in order for them to get jobs and get employed. So we're currently in the process of interviewing a few of the candidates to see how viable they are in terms of the knowledge they already have. Most of these guys have done university here in the US and they go back home and get jobs. They build sites and apps and things like that. So we're trying to interview them to figure out who would be suitable for the first set of people. So if anyone is interested, if anyone is interested in helping others, obviously this is not a paid program. Everyone's putting in their own time on their own dime. So if you're interested in helping train someone on any of the Microsoft Stack technologies for them to succeed, then please do get in touch with any of us, Dennis, Cam, or I. And the name of the site, the URL, Gopi, if you want to pull that up, it's called youthreboot.org.
Yeah, Cam pasted it in the chat.
Yeah, so it's interesting. So these guys are asking questions. The other day, one of the gentlemen, he's studying for university in Barbados, but he's from Dominica in computer science, and he asked me, what would you tell, if you were to go back 10 years in the past, what would you tell yourself to be more successful? And I thought was interesting. None of the other guys asked me questions like that. They just ask about the program or what they'll learn or when it'll start. But I was kind of surprised when I was asked that question. So I basically told him, hey, listen, the one thing which I would have told myself 10 years ago is to just put yourself out there. So if I would have started earlier to share my knowledge or go push myself to present more or organize more or just in general, not be cooped up and always think that, I don't really know that much. What I know is not useful to others. That's what I told him I would tell myself. We have a few more questions now. Do you know how much was donated already, Tony? We already said that, Tony, unless you donated like $5,000 and you're asking me to check again. Oh, there you go. So it's up to 1,637 euros. All right.
Nice.
Oh, thank you for your donation.
Keep it going, guys.
Sal just donated. Good work.
Yeah.
I'm putting on that. Let me share.
So we keep getting asked this question, would the video be available? And we let the question from behind. So we are trying to record these sessions and hopefully we'll be able to provide them to you. But as you know, in the world of technology, things which we're supposed to work don't. So we are hoping that we'll provide it to you, but we are bracing ourselves to not do that.
Should I switch back to donations line?
Sure. And then, guys, when you're watching these sessions, again, you can ask questions as the session goes on in the questions tab. You don't have to wait till the end. This way, the organizers who are running those sessions can be prepared. And then when the presenter stops presenting, they could go through those questions. So don't wait till the end, and it just elongates the previous session.
Yeah.
Now we're getting some questions about accessibility again. We'll try and forward those on to John, and Dave, and have them reach out to you, Stanley. I think Stanley's on Slack anyway, so.
So there's a question for discussion from Ashish Bansal. Multiple web apps versus increasing the CD server within the web apps. Any experience there? I want to address that one. Dead silence.
I think it's going to depend on the type of load you're seeing, right? And also licensing. If you're on a subscription-based licensing, you can scale out as much as you like. But if you're on a perpetual license, you will scale up before you scale out, because scaling out was going to cost you more licensing, generally speaking, right? Depends on your agreement that you have, and it's going to depend on whether you're IaaS or PaaS as well.
And if you need multiple region support, right? Like, so if you want in Europe and Asia specifically, then might make sense to have web apps in both regions and scale up from there. So, and it cost as well, makes a huge difference.
Definitely take a look at that CDN stuff that Vincent went through earlier. That'd be one of the first areas to look at to try and make a cheaper way of getting performance out of your Sitecore sites.
Ooh, we got Andy. I'm gonna stop my video, let Andy get on, and then we can bug him with some questions.
Nice, nice.
Andy, can you hear us? He is on.
Unmute him.
Oh,
self-muted.
Yeah. So Andy, it says you're self-muted and we do not see your video. So if you can, please start your webcam. There you go.
There he is. Beautiful.
Audio, please, sir. Look at how finely the gentleman is dressed up. Good job, Andy.
Yeah.
I don't think we can hear you though, Andy.
Okay, there you go.
There you go.
Now you're on.
Hey, there we go.
Hey.
Welcome, guests.
Can we hear you?
I can hear you. Can you hear me okay, guys?
Yes, sir.
Fantastic.
Yep.
All right.
Gopi, you want to give the presenter to Andy?
I better just
How's it going, Andy?
Close down Slack. That would be sound move.
You think?
Yeah.
All right, automate all things.
Yay, hey, we're about 10 minutes out from Andy starting, which is pretty exciting stuff.
Cool, man. Have we got, you've got my presenter screen and not my, you've got the actual proper slideshow?
Yeah,
Actually,
Good.
audience.
Straight in.
Nice one. Jamie Cam setting the house on fire. Hey, Mike.
Welcome back. Welcome back, Mike Reynolds.
I've been here.
Where's the jokes?
Stalky.
Where you going, Mike? Where you been?
Mike, where's your gold suit?
It's in California. You're supposed to go get it.
So where is it? Where are you at, Mike?
I'm in New Hampshire. I'm an hour north of Boston.
Yeah. I hear still tough times up that part of town as well.
Well, yeah, Boston's getting pretty bad. Where I am, it's a little less, but it's just cascades out. So, we're not that far away from where all the troubles are happening here.
Yeah. Sorry to hear that, but hopefully
Were you
everything's
based
fine.
out of Andy?
I'm in Perth. There he is. There's the guy. Look at him. Classic, man. Perth, Western Australia. We're kind of fortunate out here at the moment. Things are, the government at this particular part of the world is doing a pretty good job. So
Yeah.
but we're all staying home.
Yeah.
How's Canada going?
Canada's good. Yeah. We're pretty okay here. Numbers are low. We work remote anyway, right? So for me, it's been like, okay, just got to go out a little bit less. The worst is like I missed the gym, right? So, and it's given me an excuse not to go, and that's broken that cycle of being able to go to the gym. So
you gotta build your own gym, like I did.
I know, yeah. It's too cold here, mate.
He just gets out in the backyard and builds playhouses and stuff. That's how the kids do.
We can do ice blocks.
Yeah, not allowed to go that far outside.
What about you, Gopi Krishna? Where are you, mate?
I'm in Auckland, New Zealand.
Oh, yeah, okay, that's right. Yeah, I remember now. Sydney last year.
We are doing good here, actually. Lockdown.
That's good to hear. And Bruce is on an island, off an island.
Yeah,
Off an island, off the coast of Australia, more or less. Yeah.
How are we going for time? Oh, we're early. Cool.
Andy presented last few days back, right? I guess Perth SUG. I was there on that
Thanks.
webinar.
Thanks, man.
Yeah.
I'm hoping this one goes better than that.
Really?
Not too early. But yeah, no, we met at Sydney. You were in Sydney, weren't you?
Yeah, I was at SUGCON, NZ.
Yeah.
Along with Bruce.
Yep, I was there definitely.
You were there.
To our viewers who've just joined us, we're just doing a bit of a chit chat in between, waiting for Andy to start, and he'll be starting pretty soon, about 5 minutes or so. If you can pop up the donate slide there, Gopi. We're raising funds for a really good cause, the frontline people who are working hard in these COVID-19 times. So we've got a donate page running, and Gopi's just going to show the slide in a minute. Show the slide. Show the slide. Because the slide has one of those.
Andy will have to do it.
Andy's got it. Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, has Andy got the slide?
What's
going on?
Yeah.
Yay! Thank you, Andy. Brilliant. So these URLs. So go over there and donate. Do it. Do it now.
Yeah.
Do you also have the Zoom room up there slide? I did go over there before myself, and then I started to have issues with webcam conflicts, and I thought, no, this is all going to go wrong, horribly wrong, so I had to leave.
Right. Your Auckland user group didn't go so well that time a few weeks back. Huh?
Total disaster. Total disaster. So we're like 5 minutes into it, and suddenly all this rubbish starts jumping up, and there's people yelling and scribbling on the screen. It was crazy. It was really surreal. So we dumped that one and had one the next week, which we were much better prepared for. But I told Corey Smith about it the next morning. I said, "Oh, look, this happened to us last night. We got so hacked. It was a disaster." And he said, "Oh yeah, got to be careful." And he pointed me at a couple of blogs you could go and see your things up. Then lo and behold, his session got hacked as well. It was like.
Yeah.
Actually, that was a good experience.
To be fair, you were at the tail end of all of this, and everybody's been getting Zoom bombed, right? So
yeah.
Just a shame there wasn't a few more of like the government ones, because I hear all the governments and stuff have been using Zoom. So imagine if they'd been Zoom bombed, that would have been.
Oh yeah.
There's a radio and TV character here called Hamish Blake, and during the initial lockdown, he got a whole bunch of random people to log him into their Zoom calls, and he would just kind of go in with a false name, and then he would like eventually sort of reveal himself and start talking about stuff with them. I'll send you a link. That's pretty fun.
One way of getting them.
That's a gig for Mike. You could do that.
Huh?
Never mind, man.
I have to sleep, man. It's past midnight here.
No, after that only we are also better prepared for the Sitecore lunch and the Zooms. Otherwise, we were posting it everywhere, and now we are only posting in Slack.
How was your Sitecore lunch in India last time?
Yeah, it was good actually.
It's
but only difference is
now we can, but in the middle it went out.
Okay. Only difference is we are not able to do much of a video chats because bandwidths are less, and so it didn't work well. So only few people are able to do video calls, and most of it is audio now.
Yeah, okay. The North American ones have been going pretty well.
Yeah.
People, I don't know who's going to be around from North America right now. People might be going to bed, but if people are around, they should join. It's usually up on Friday at 12:15 or so. I think the UK had one last week as well, midday or so UK time. They've been happening at quite a few different places around the world. They're pretty good, especially right now with everybody working purely from home. It's nice just to jump on and talk to some other people, like-minded people, and just about what's been going on this week and different stuff every week, right? Just whatever comes up and whatever people want to talk about. Sometimes it also depends on who's on. We've had quite a number of people come on from Sitecore themselves, so it's usually a good time to pick their brains on something you've been wanting to know, or something that you've been working on and haven't been able to get an answer elsewhere. So definitely recommend those if you guys have time. Just block that hour off right now in your Outlook calendar so somebody doesn't book a meeting during it.
And from our side, we don't only talk about Sitecore, we talk all random things.
Yeah.
Whatever the group want to talk.
Exactly.
Do you guys want to get started?